Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 United States elections, specifically focused on the two governor elections in Virginia and New Jersey. Now, if you were a part of my channel back in 2017, you will know that I covered the 2017 governor elections in both of these states, and they were fairly interesting elections. The Democratic Party won one seat in New Jersey, which was previously held by Republican Governor Chris Christie. He's a well-known name. And Ralph Northam actually won by a very significant margin back in 2017. So looking at 2021, this could be the first wave of opposition, or lack thereof, against a president-elect or president then Biden in a Biden administration, because we know that when an incumbent president is there, there is always going to be more energy on the opposing party side. Even President Obama, who was reelected in 2012, oversaw the Democratic Party losing 63 seats in the House of Representatives in that midterm election. They also lost numerous Senate seats, so one may argue back then, wasn't that a great indicator that Mitt Romney was going to win the 2012 election? No, it wasn't, because off-year elections and midterm elections always display their opposition to the incumbent president, but there are telling signs depending on the results of the midterm elections. 2018 was very interesting. That was a year where the Republican Party gained seats in the Senate but lost seats in the House of Representatives. But I don't think that midterm was the exact moment when we knew Donald Trump was going to lose the election. That came later on as the Democratic Party decided their nominee. But when we're looking at 2021, I think this could be the first display of not necessarily support for the Republican Party, but pretty much just opposition to Joe Biden. Because what we saw in 2018 was a number of Republicans switching over to vote for the Democratic Party. On top of that, we saw a lot of voters who traditionally did not vote in midterms actually end up voting. Usually when people aren't too happy with the incumbent president, even if they may be more inclined to vote for them in their re-election bid, they may be more likely to support a conservative Democrat for the case of Donald Trump, or a more centrist Democrat, or even a progressive Democrat. As long as it's not someone who's enabling the incumbent president who they currently disapprove of, it's easy to see how they could vote in opposition. So, whoa, I almost lost everything right there. But in 2021, we are going to see two governor elections in two states that should not be competitive. But back in 2017, we should actually take a look at these United States elections. We had a number of special elections in House districts that should not have been competitive. That actually may be a warning sign for Democrats in these House districts that are up for re-election. Georgia's 6th district should not have been competitive. It was Newt Gingrich's seat. Should not have been competitive and is now has been won by a Democrat by double digits. Montana at large was competitive in this special election. It was competitive in 2018. It was competitive in 2020. Should not have been. Even this district in Kansas, I remember myself refreshing that New York Times page. That was an exceptionally close race for a district that is extremely safe. And in South Carolina, they had a special election that was coinciding with the day of the Georgia 6th election. Surprisingly, that special election in South Carolina was closer, and it was a very safe seat. Alabama had a safe Republican seat that was won with no Democratic opponent back in 2014 when Jeff Sessions was up. It was won by a Democrat. So there are very weird things that can happen in off years. New Jersey was picked up by the Democratic Party. That wasn't too shocking, but I think it's just interesting. Yeah, here it is. Kansas 4th District special election. Here there was also, you see Greg Gianforte defeated the Democrat 49.7% to 44.1% just a year prior, not even a year prior. Trump had won that seat. Trump had won that state, well, that congressional district by 20 points. So I just find these special elections to be very interesting. In districts you would not expect to be competitive, they would become competitive. But enough about those. We'll focus on those competitive, potentially competitive House races in the future as Biden starts to announce more of his picks. But we're going to focus on these New Jersey and Virginia governor races because right now in Virginia, we actually see a pretty competitive race on the Democratic side. And it's going to be extremely, extremely competitive. Let's go ahead and take a look back. I'm going through all my tabs here. I don't know where I put them. But in 2017, Ralph Northam replaced Terry McAuliffe. Now, Terry McAuliffe was the incumbent governor, but you cannot run for re-election consecutively. You can run for re-election after that term, but you cannot run for 2 terms in the state of Virginia. So Ralph Northam is out. He won this 2017 governor election by 9 points. And it was called very early in the evening because usually Northern Virginia takes a long time to count, and the entire southern area was actually way more Democratic than expected. So it was by no means even really competitive, even though polling indicated right up to Election Day and throughout the entire campaign season that it was still going to be moderately close. These polls didn't exactly expect there to be a 9-point difference. We're talking a 1-point difference, 2 points, 1 point, 1 point, 4 points, 5 points at most. And, when you're looking at these results, the Democratic Party did very well. They had 48% turnout. But looking ahead in 2021, what could we see that's different? Well, number one, the declared candidates is a lot. Terry McAuliffe, who I just mentioned was replaced in 2017, is running again. Jennifer Carroll Foy, definitely a progressive, well-known, not necessarily as well-known as Terry McAuliffe, but definitely someone who could represent the progressive wing in this state of Virginia. We will see how she fares. Justin Fairfax, the incumbent lieutenant governor, has also declared that he is going to run. Jennifer McClellan, she's probably the one that I've heard the least about. But when we're talking about all four of these candidates, we are going to see a very competitive primary. A lot of top names, a lot of ideological names representing certain wings of the Democratic Party. We will see what happens. But realistically, Virginia is going to be a pretty Democratic state, which is exactly why it's important to note if it's actually competitive. Because when we're looking at these Republican candidates, these potential Republican candidates, actually, if we can actually find it, Republican candidates here, in terms of the declared candidates, I mean, Kurt Cox is the only one who so far has gained any type of, not necessarily national recognition, but statewide recognition. We've seen his social media feeds pretty active, but other than that, we probably aren't going to see a super competitive governor bid for any of these Republicans. Realistically, Virginia is a state that's probably going to be Democratic for quite some time, which is why it would be interesting if it was competitive, but straight off the bat, I don't expect it to be so. The thing about Donald Trump was that he was extremely unpopular. He was an unpopular president throughout his entire presidency. Never once had he been approved of following January 2017. Never once. It never happened. No other president in United States history could ever say the same. And when you're looking at 2021, you may think Joe Biden's going to start out unpopular. We're a polarized nation. And you're right. We are polarized. But Joe Biden is going to enjoy. He is going to benefit from the economic recovery as the vaccine is distributed. The vaccine will not be fully done by the time that Donald Trump leaves office. A lot of that credit will go to Joe Biden. Whether he deserves it or not, he is the incumbent president who will be overseeing the majority of the vaccine distribution. For Donald Trump, he was the incumbent president during a global pandemic, and he paid the price for it. It doesn't matter if it was directly his fault or not. He was the incumbent president. He was expected to safeguard the nation, and when some people thought that he failed to do so, they didn't vote for him, and therefore he lost his election. Joe Biden, I think, could become very popular if the economy recovers. And I know the Republican talking point in Virginia and New Jersey will be that this was Donald Trump's economy recovery. This was Donald Trump's, vaccine distribution plan, whatever it might be. But realistically, do you think that's going to work? It was very difficult to convince a number of Republicans that a lot of what Trump was doing with the economy was the direct response or result of Obama, just a continuation of what Obama was doing. I don't think that same messaging would work for Democrats, for Donald Trump. But when you're looking at 2021, I hope for the Republican Party's sake that they stop talking about someone who didn't win the 2020 election, especially in a state or either of the states that he didn't win. But looking at Virginia, I think that this is the only state truly that could be competitive on the governor level. I do not think that New Jersey is going to be competitive. I'm telling you that straight off the bat. New Jersey is probably going to go to the Democratic Party. Phil Murphy is not term limited like Ralph Northam in the state of Virginia. He can run for re-election, and he has declared his intent to run for re-election. So he's going to run for re-election. He's probably going to win based off the declared candidates and based off the potential candidates. I really don't think that anyone here could actually make the race competitive. Realistically, 2017 was the last time that could have happened. That was the last time that could have happened because the incumbent Republican lieutenant governor ran and she was defeated by 14 points. 2013 was the last time a Republican won in New Jersey. And that's because Chris Christie, based off his Hurricane Sandy response and a number of other things, was super popular in the state of New Jersey. However, once he left, super unpopular. You wouldn't even want to associate his name with anyone else. So it's very weird how some of these politicians fall into the public's favor and not. But Phil Murphy swooped in, took this governorship, and in 2021, he's probably going to do the same thing. I see the same exact thing happening with any of these Democratic candidates. All of them would be one term. Terry McAuliffe already served. Justin Fairfax, the lieutenant governor. Progressive candidates, whatever it might be. I think the Democratic Party is fine with whoever they nominate. I think they will win with whoever they nominate. It's a matter of margin But realistically, if they're winning, it's a 4-year term, and then it's up in 2025, and none of the candidates here, if they win the primary now and they win the election, they can't run for re-election. So a lot of these candidates do have time to run in the future. The Democratic Party, I think, will be fine for any of the 4 candidates on here, realistically. So I think the Democratic Party shouldn't exactly be super worried about the state of Virginia, but we could see a more competitive race. Now, actually, once we get into the new year, once we get into full 2021, by January, February, I probably expect all of the candidates who want to run to announce. Same thing in the state of New Jersey. And then we can start to see what the preliminary election data is telling us, where people's public opinion stands on Terry McAuliffe, or even Ralph Northam, who actually had a very big scandal, arguably very big scandal, which could have doomed a re-election bid if he was able to run. But since he can't, a lot of these candidates, we're probably going to see the approval rating of some of them. Now, not every Virginia voter is going to know who some of these Democratic or Republican candidates are, so that may be an issue, but statewide elections are usually easier for name recognition, obviously, than national elections. And I think Terry McAuliffe, Justin Fairfax, even Jennifer Carroll Foy, with just a little bit of advertising, could be a very well-known name across the state. Looking at Virginia, like I had said numerous times in this video, would be interesting if it was competitive, but do I think it'll be competitive? No, I do not. And looking at the 2017 statewide elections, well, we actually saw the Virginia House of Delegates election back in 2017, and I remember following this one very closely because the Republican Party went from having a supermajority to only a 2-seat majority. The Democratic Party gained 15 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates. In 2019, they took them out. In 2019, the Democratic Party won the Virginia House of Delegates. That energy continued past 2017, past 2018, into 2019, and of course into 2020 when Joe Biden had the largest margin of victory for a Democrat since 1944 in Virginia. The largest margin of victory for a Democrat since 1944. Very interesting. Looking at the Virginia House of Delegates election in 2021, do I think that the Republican Party could win it back? Technically they could, based off the seat majority, but do I think that they will? No. It's Virginia. It's a state that probably isn't going to be super competitive like it used to be 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I think that it's going to be a state that the Republican Party is probably going to be very upset that they didn't focus more on, because the Virginia GOP has faded into irrelevancy just as fast as the California GOP. Just as we are seeing now in a number of other battleground states where there's a lot of infighting within the GOP, and it's probably not going to be for the benefit of the GOP. We're looking at Georgia, the conflict between the Trump wing of the Republican Party and the traditional wing of the Republican Party. Same thing in Arizona. President Trump already dooming Doug Ducey's 2022 Senate bid. That was an easily winnable race, given Doug Ducey's somewhat popular approval rating. But realistically, if he's not approved of by the Trump wing, you can't imagine they'd be too happy to vote for him. So Virginia's GOP, I think that they really made a number of missteps that ultimately ended up with them losing a supermajority that they had in 2017, 66 seats down to 45. That is a 21-seat decrease from 2017. And I think that's just very interesting that that occurred. It's very interesting that they went from being in the majority overwhelmingly to being at this point, even under Obama. We can actually take a look in 2017. Now, I'm not going to talk about New Jersey's state legislature races. The reason for that is because the Democratic Party has the majority there, 25 to 15. It's probably not going to change. It's not as competitive as Virginia by any means. But looking at 2015, relatively nothing changed across all of these races. Even in 2009, the Democratic Party didn't exactly remain in the majority. I think in 2005, even before then, the Democratic Party had not controlled this chamber for years. For decades. Yeah, 1997 was the last time prior to 2019 that the Democratic Party controlled the Virginia House of Delegates. So obviously we're seeing something different happen in Virginia, something that hadn't happened in 20 years. And, even under Obama, it didn't happen. Even under, 2017, the first time, it did not happen. In 2019, that's when the Democrats took it back. The first time since 1997. And the Democratic Party held both control of both legislative and executive branches for the first time since 1993. So looking at 2021, I absolutely think the Democratic Party starts out with the advantage in these state legislature races, in these special elections, in these governor races. But as 2017 showed us, there could be some very big surprises. But the initial rating is that the Democratic Party should be secure. So So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.